Hey guys, so today I'm going to be doing a spoiler-free review of this book, Spellbook of the Lost and Found by Moira Fowley-Doyle. I really enjoyed this book, which I was happy about because it's one that I've been looking forward to ever since I saw that it was coming out. I think it came out last year, probably, but it was a book that I had in my most anticipated releases one month. I would kind of call it a YA fantasy, but it definitely has contemporary feels with just a few fantastical elements. Obviously there's a spell book involved. The issues that it deals with are more along the lines of contemporary, like there's romances but also serious issues dealt with, family issues, things like that as well. And I would also say that it's kind of the higher end of YA in terms of the age range. It's not a YA book that younger, as in like pre-teens, early teens would want to read. I'd say it's more like a 16 and over kind of book, just because of the nature of like some of the content of this. This book kind of follows 3 different groups of teenagers and how their different stories intertwine. It's set in an Irish small town, which I really liked. I thought that was a very different kind of setting. And basically the premise of the book is that things start to go missing. A spell book appears which might help them to get some things back. The main thing that I loved about this book was that it kind of has this really atmospheric feel to it. It is a spooky autumnal sort of read, which is perfect for me right now because in New Zealand we're going into autumn. For the rest of the world, I would say that it's probably a good one to read in October, that kind of season, because it does have that autumnal kind of feel, even though at the beginning of the book I think it mentions that it's like summertime, but there's a lot of lightning storms and like dramatic things like that, and it just for me definitely has autumnal kind of vibes, and it has elements of spookiness to it. I wouldn't say it's like an edge of your seat thriller kind of read, but it has that ominous, like spooky feel the whole way through, which is really awesome. And like I mentioned, I really loved the setting of this book being in an Irish small town. It was small enough that for the kids in this town, the outskirts of town, like the paddocks and forests that surround them, aren't too far away, so a lot of it takes place in those areas, like empty fields and forests and things like that. It just adds to the creepiness of the story. I loved the writing of this book most of all. I think that's what really made it for me. It's really richly written and there's a lot of imagery used, and if you're someone like me who likes a lot of beautiful subtle imagery, I'm not all about super obvious metaphors and things like that, but I really like imagery when it's done in like a subtle kind of way, and I just loved the writing in this book. I thought it was beautiful. I really liked the characters in this book for the most part. It dealt with, I thought, family issues really well. And at the very beginning of the book, if you've read this, you'll know what I mean. I was wondering where the heck everybody's parents were, and I was dreading it being one of those YA books where the parents just aren't around and you are wondering how they're getting away with all of these things, but that kind of got rectified. It was just like a one-off thing at the start of the book. The parents definitely are around a lot more later in the book. I loved the romances in this book as well. There is bisexual representation. There's a few different relationships that come up and I liked all of them. I was fascinated by all of the characters. Like I said, I kind of liked all of them. There was one character though called Ivy who was supposed to be kind of equally like one of the main characters, but I just felt like we didn't see enough of her, so I found myself not liking her because she just seemed kind of weird and like didn't really need to be there because we didn't really see her much. I don't know, it just felt like she was a little bit irrelevant. So aside from Ivy, I really liked all of the other characters and found them really interesting. There was a male character in this book called Jude, and I found myself really wanting to know more about him as well until you do find out more, and then I wish I hadn't found out more because I kind of liked him being quite mysterious and like this almost Peter Pan kind of figure. I don't know, I just found that really fascinating, and then to find out more about him later was kind of like, I preferred when he was a bit more mysterious. Not saying I liked his character, he's not the greatest person, but I just was intrigued and I liked the mystery and how he kind of wasn't like a real person. I loved the witchiness of this book. I've just been obsessed with witch related like spooky kind of books that explore like witchcraft and magic and things like that. I've been really interested in that lately and I really want to find more books. If you have any like witchy book recommendations, let me know because I'm so into that right now. So I loved that element of this book. So overall I loved this book. It was super mysterious, so it's not like a thriller, but there is enough mystery to keep you wanting to know what happens in the end and how it all ties together. But my favorite part about it I think was the atmosphere, so like the setting and the writing I really, really loved. And it just, like I said, it makes me want to read more witchy books. The only thing that I didn't like about it, which is kind of why I gave it 4 stars rather than 5 stars, was multiple point of views. It follows 3 different girls from first person. So there's a girl called Olive, there's one called Hazel, and one called Laurel. And I just found that, because they're all kind of in different groups, it's cool to get the different perspectives and see how these different stories tie together. I just didn't feel like the actual point of views were distinct from one another. It was one of those where the writing just felt the same. So aside from, you know, each chapter telling you, you know, the name of the person who's going to be narrating, there's not much difference in the narration between the 3 girls, and they sounded very like samey, even though they're completely different characters to one another. The narration was too similar. So I think if you're going to do multiple point of views, you need to make the voices really distinct and unique. Otherwise it would have been better from like third person, just following these 3 different characters, because the voices just weren't unique enough. But aside from that, I loved this book, and like I said, if you have more witchy book recommendations, let me know, because I'm all for that. If you've read this book, let me know what you think of it in the comments down below, and if you're going to be reading it and you really want to pick it up, let me know that as well, because I would love to know. And I will see you guys with another video in a couple of days. Bye.